What doesn't feel special is how U.S. students are continuing to lose ground in math and reading. You actually sent this one over to me, so you probably spent a little bit more time wrapping your head around this one, but I'll share and get into it as we offer our opinions. So this is from the Associated Press. A decade-long slide in high schoolers' reading and math performance persisted during the COVID-19 pandemic, with 12th graders' scores dropping to their lowest level in more than 20 years, according to results released Tuesday from an exam known as the Nation's Report Card. Eighth grade students also lost significant ground in science skills, according to results from the National Assessment of Education Progress. The assessments were the first since the pandemic for eighth graders in science and 12th graders in reading and math. They reflect a downward drift across grade levels and subject areas in previous releases from NAEP, which is considered one of the best gauges of the academic progress of U.S. schools. While the pandemic had an outsized impact on student achievement, experts said falling scores are part of a longer arc in education that cannot be attributed solely to COVID-19, school closures, and related issues such as heightening absenteeism. Educators said potential underlying factors include children's increased screen time, shortened attention spans, and a decline in reading longer form writing both in and out of school. I suspect that they're right there. The dip in reading scores appeared alongside a shift in how English and language arts are taught in schools, with an emphasis on short text and book excerpts, said Carol Jago, Associate Director of the California Reading and Literature Project at UCLA. As a high school English teacher 20 years ago, Jago said it was common for her high school students to read 20 books over the course of a year. Now, some English classes are assigning just 3 books a year. Quote, to be a good reader, you have to have the stamina to stay on the page, even when the going gets tough, unquote, Jago said. He goes on to say, you have to build those muscles, and we're not building those muscles in kids, unquote. Education Secretary Linda McMahon said the scores show why the Trump administration wants to give states more control of education spending. Now, remember, Linda McMahon is the woman that Trump put in as education secretary. Quote, despite spending billions annually on numerous K-12 programs, the achievement gap is widening and more high school seniors are performing below the basic benchmark in math and reading than ever before, McMahon said. House Democrats said the Trump administration's efforts to dismantle the education department will only hurt students. The declines show a need for federal investment in academy recovery and educational equity, said Democratic Representative Bobby Scott of Virginia, ranking member of the House Committee on Education and Workforce. Quote, eliminating the very agency responsible for supporting public schools and enforcing civil rights protection of students will only deepen the achievement gaps identified by this assessment, unquote, Scott said. So, I want to make sure that I give you plenty of time to share your thoughts here, Q. So why don't you go first?
So the woman whose family gave us professional wrestling.
Is that who that is?
Yes, Linda McMahon, the wife of Vince McMahon, the CEO of, the former CEO of the WWF, then WWE, World Wrestling Federation initially, and World Wrestling Entertainment later. Is now in charge of educating the children of our nation.
Cool.
Because of course she's overtly qualified for it.
Yeah.
Hence my problem with the statements from earlier.
Yeah.
She was a candidate that fell in line with the guy in charge.
Yeah, that's it.
Even with no qualifications whatsoever. It's not that she's not the most qualified. She's completely unqualified.
Yeah.
And thinks that our education system that's already suffering will do better with less. That's what she said. We're giving it back to the states means we're taking it away from us. The federal government and the Department of Education, we're going to take our hands off of this and, just give that money to ourselves and our rich friends. And the kids will figure it out. It's the interesting thing about exceptionalism and the Americans who pride themselves on telling everyone we're the greatest country in the world will make sure that the teachers have less, that the schools have less, that the children have less. and then give themselves a pat on the back for having taken everything from them. One of the first things this administration looked to do was get rid of the Department of Education. Things like that on their face should have disqualified this person from being in charge. Except we live in an unfortunate dystopian Twilight Zone like reality where as long as he's pumping his fist and wearing his hat, the tens of millions of people that support him will continue to do so and cheer him on, even when they're taking education resources, books, teacher salaries away from their own kids. Tens of millions of these people that voted for him have children that attend public schools who will now get a lesser education than the generation before them. As the gap widens between our country and others. But at least they own the libs, right?
So watch this. Let's see. States with the worst schools. Okay, Alabama, Arizona. Actually, you know what? Let me find a better list. Okay, states frequently cited with the worst school systems include New Mexico, Oklahoma, Alaska, Arizona, Oregon, Nevada, West Virginia, Louisiana, and Alabama. Okay, so let's see how many of these are blue states. New Mexico's blue state.
I'll do that work for you. It's going to be overwhelmingly red.
Yeah, Oregon. So the rest of these, Oklahoma's last. I know that. Alaska, Arizona, unfortunately, Nevada, West Virginia, Louisiana, Alabama, of course, all red states. So these states, she wants to put the education squarely in the lap of these states who are already failing to educate their children. New Mexico, I understand there's some problems in New Mexico that are kind of unique to New Mexico. So they don't get a free pass, but I have some context there. The rest of these states, they all have very similar philosophies. A lot of these places are really deeply conservative. You know how it goes. And that's a really scary thought because she's basically cutting off her own base, saying like, you know, if you're talking about the people in Maine who are going to vote blue every single time where they have this wonderful education system, or in Vermont or places like that, you know, it's fine, you know, we'll probably do better, but they're like hurting their own base. And I've been watching this trend for some time that red states overall do much worse than blue states when it comes to educating their children because of a lot of the backwards. I think in Oregon, Oklahoma, they now have like a Bible in the classroom. 51st in education, have a Bible in the classroom. So that's what they were going for. And they have to educate. And when these kids can't get jobs and there's no industry and no money coming back to Oklahoma, we can look at this lady with the wrestling family or whatever and say, look, man, and look at Donald Trump too and say, look, man, you guys did this to yourself. But for anybody that does have kids, one of the things that I do, just some food for thought. When my son comes home from school, I put him in front of a book for 30 minutes. I put him on his guitar for 30 minutes, and then he can do what he wants. And we're trying to keep those muscles going. I try not to overwhelm him, but it's something. I know the world has changed, but I think that there's a degree of parental responsibility, a high, significant degree of parental responsibility that goes into this equation as well. And I found that as teachers really do appreciate an engaged parent. Fortunately, I'm able to be engaged. But they also appreciate a children that does independent study on their own.